Good afternoon, it's Simon from Prestige Garden Services, just in the thick of it at the moment, right in between an apple tree and a prunus laurel hedge, which has quite honestly taken some time in regards to getting it cleared. Now the client's been struggling. Forgive me whilst I've been off camera. Well, actually not the client, should I say, the apple tree behind me. It's been struggling quite significantly. And there's several reasons why apple trees struggle. Certainly, this is the time of the year between now and spring to obviously get these cut back. And that obviously has to be done a particular way. And a certain particular method is used, which is effectively pruning. There's quite a few things to obviously take into consideration of when you are cutting and pruning apple trees. And that is obviously that of disease, displacement, and dead wood. So if I take you for a look around this particular tree, it doesn't look healthy first sight. You can see obviously all of the this particular prunus was a good 2 to 3 feet higher, and obviously that in itself straight away has a problem, which is water, sunlight and aeration. Air flow just can't get to the tree in respect to clearing off disease, allowing obviously this incredible we call it almost like a goblet shape tree to effectively allow the circulation to grow through, and then obviously that stimulates growth through natural pollination with regards to all of the bees and the wasps which you need to pollinate the flowers to produce the fruit. In addition to that, you can see the base here, which I've spent probably an hour clearing out just around this area here, which was just thick with ivy. You can see like here next to it the heavy dense growth which was around this, and that effectively, once it's covered over, you know, you can't get water and sunlight to penetrate, certainly water down there. These leaves form almost an umbrella, which obviously the water then disperses in and around the area, hence the reason why this fella's doing really well and the apple tree isn't doing so well. So when we look at it, there's obviously branches here which you can see, which has got nothing coming from it. It's dead. It's not necessary. So we'll be taking this limb off. There's nothing from it, no buds, no new growth. Effectively speaking, I made a couple of incisions here on some of the wood, and you can see that how clear that is. It's in good condition, just because obviously on the outside it's got nodules and canker and a whole host of coral perhaps in and around the actual skin of the tree. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's in bad shape. What you're looking for are these fellas here. You can see this cut's been made here, and quite often you see cuts produced on an apple tree which quite honestly stimulate growth. So what I'm wanting to do today with this tree here is I'm almost wanting to stress it out a bit. They say that not to really cut any more than 30% off a tree. It stresses it out, but because of the position that it's in at the moment, the dead position, the dead place. If I have a look at this, if I step back into the garden, mind my back here and not fall away, you can see what they've tried to do is put a kind of a cuff, a collar around it, just for aesthetics. But what they've actually done is not maintained it, and with that, you've got a situation whereby it's just blocked in. Now, if I look at its sister here, and this is a very clever. So whoever's done this is clearly a gardener. I don't think the people in the property at the moment where I am planted these. They're obviously well-established trees, but what you've got is from one tree to another, an apple tree and a pear tree, or vice versa. These are two apple trees, but you've got a good pollination between the bees flying from one to another and back, and they pollinate, and that obviously is key in respect to producing fruit. And what you've got here is you can see this healthy young shoots. You can see because of the coloration, and they're very and they've got leaves on them, which is great, and they're pliable. I can bend these quite nicely. And in fact, the French way of producing apple trees is a word called festoon. And when you bend the apple tree back, you can obviously tie these branches all the way back down to its stem, leading a piece of wire or string and attaching them and trailing them and training them to curve round. And then what you've got a situation, you don't have to literally reach up or an apple to knock you on the head. It's no good having branches that high on an apple tree. You know, you just can't reach them. So what you really want is a low apple tree, a mature one, constantly being producing good fruit, and with that you want to be able to just literally come up to the apple tree, pull it off of your hand, bang in your mouth, wallop, done, finished. None of this messing about. So I get called into all different particular type of gardens to look at different things, and this is quite a passion actually. I remember being in an orchard at Askham Bryan, and I spent a day just pruning apple trees, and I got a bit fed up with it. Quite honestly, I had a bit of a go at the actual teacher, and he goes, you know, you've got to learn the right way, Simon. You've got to learn the right things. And only probably a year down the line did I realise how important it is to look at these apple trees. It's interesting just looking at this actually. I spotted something which is very, very interesting, and that are these incisions here, and they're all the way up the tree. Can you see that? I don't know if you can see. 1, 2, 3. And what that is, believe it or not, is with an apple tree, it's very similar to roses. There's a big debate between apple trees and roses. And that is, let me just step out of here, is when you're growing an apple tree or the branches of a tree, and you're trying to obviously control the tree in which way we want. We're the music makers of how we grow things. If you score a bark in respect to the apple tree, you stop its flow of sap, nutrients, carbohydrates, vitamins to the next branch. All it can then do is force back downwards to the branch below. So clearly somebody's known what they were doing many years ago by obviously scoring the branches to allow obviously that of growth in the right direction. So at the moment we're obviously currently pruning this fella here, and we'll be taking quite a significant approach to this because we've got branches going into the back garden, we've got branches going up, we've got a lot of formations of unsightly things that we don't really want. And with an apple tree, what you want, as I mentioned to you, is this incredible goblet shape. You want to be able to throw your hat through it, as they say in the horticultural land, and you can see just the difference between that fella here and this fella here. So at the moment, I'm losing light at the moment on this particular job, but this is quite a bit of a pleasure here, because it's almost like doing a bit of surgery, rescuing it, and I know that the practice that I'm going to employ on this fella here is going to produce some quality fruit. Just because obviously a fruit tree doesn't bear fruit one year, it doesn't mean it's finished. Sometimes what that means is it's harvesting for the following year to be able to produce even more fruit than before. Other than that, problematic issues is that, you know, if apple trees aren't producing fruit, it's basically what lies beneath. Clearly they can get infected, but as long as it's getting sunlight, water, it should do very, very well. And if anything's around it, it can cause obviously that of disease in respect to ivy. We get a lot of ivy wrapping it around its neck, etc. It's producing obviously that of a blanket so the water can't get through, and obviously that of infection in regards to insects. There are bands that you can buy that go around the base of the tree which stop all the creepy crawlers and things from getting to it. At the end of the day, wildlife and also humans, we all love one particular thing, and that is sugar. We love sugar. So trees, you know, insects are drawn, dogs, and everybody is drawn to sugar. We're all addicted to it in some form. I love caramel. Love a Cadbury's caramel. Got to get one now after this. And it's the same here. This is a very, very, very sweet sap. And insects will be drawn to it, so you've got to try and protect as best as you possibly can. Otherwise it's going to struggle. You know, you don't want lots and lots of small little insects biting into its bark and opening it up, and it doesn't damage it that much, believe it or not. It's the wound that gets opened, the bacteria then sets in, and that causes obviously then the disease, and that's what trees struggle with. And you can go further afield with that in regards to, you know, trees, arboriculture, and protecting our trees, because they're so important to the world. And that's another story. But there you go, bit of information on a Tuesday afternoon. I'm going to get back onto this now because I'm losing light and I need to get this job finished. I can see a few people watching. Hi Jeffrey, how you doing, mate? Hope you're well. And Michelle, hope you're well. Have a good afternoon, guys. Enjoy. Should you need any assistance obviously with apple tree pruning, get in touch. It's Simon from Prestige.